Hello. Welcome to the Nothing is Wasted podcast. Thanks for joining me yet again for another great conversation this week. And I'm particularly excited about this one. I've been really excited for several months now to release this conversation to you guys, our Nothing is Wasted community, because there is there's something that I keep hearing from pastors and ministry leaders that keeps me up at night. It has driven a deep conviction for me and for our ministry. And it essentially goes something like this. I want to help hurting people. I just don't know how to anymore. It feels overwhelming. The pain feels endless. There's so many different nuances of or types of pain that I don't feel like I have the expertise in. And somewhere along the way, many of us started believing that unless we have the right degree or the right words or the right answers or the right credentials, that we're not qualified to help. And honestly, I understand. I didn't learn the stuff that we're talking about on this podcast. I didn't learn any of it in Bible college. Seminary, they don't teach any of this stuff. Unless you blend some, psychoeducation or psychology tracks, most pastors feel under-equipped, ill-qualified to help people through pain. And yet we feel like we have to be a lot of things for a lot of people. And what if that belief, though, is actually part of the problem? What if one of the greatest revivals that God wants to bring about right now doesn't start with louder sermons or bigger programs, but with healing? And I know I'm saying this knowing that we have a program, a pathway that helps people with healing. But what if it's beyond that? What if it's more than that? And what if the church is a lot more equipped than we even realize? And that is where our conversation begins today. That is why I'm so excited to have Shaunti Feldhahn, who is about to be a doctor, PhD. She's just wrapped up her PhD study, and Dr. Jim Sells. Shaunti has become a good friend of ours. I first was turned on to Shaunti and her work with her husband, Jeff. You may remember the books For Men Only, For Women Only. She and her husband, Jeff, are the authors behind those books. Shaunti is a social researcher, author, and speaker who has spent decades helping the church understand people better, especially in moments of pain, conflict, crisis. And I actually met Shaunti about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. Christy and I were at a pastor's retreat in Orlando with 1,000 pastor couples. And Shaunti intercepted us in the hallway at this huge convention center and said, "Davey," and introduced herself. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love your work. I know who you are." And she told us what she was doing there. She was actually there to survey pastors and ministry leaders for this body of work that she and Dr. Jim Sells have now released. And it's all summarized in a book called When Hurting People Come to Church. Talk about an appropriate book and an appropriate conversation for the Nothing is Wasted podcast. It's called, again, When Hurting People Come to Church. And Dr. Jim Sells is a clinical psychologist with over 30 years of experience training leaders, clinicians, and churches to care well for hurting people. He is the lead psychologist, or the director of psychology, I think is what his official title might be, at Regent University. And together, they've done an extensive research, surveying thousands of pastors and church leaders across denominations, across church sizes, theological traditions, to answer this one urgent question: can the church actually be a meaningful solution in the middle of today's mental and emotional health crisis? We say it this way: can we bring the healing conversation back into the church? And if so, what does that actually look like in real life? We had Shaunti join us a couple of months ago. We did one of our Healing Leader Roundtable events in Atlanta because she's Atlanta-based. It was an incredible conversation. And we've just been holding this podcast episode back because, man, we're just like ready. Now I've been like, we're ready to release this. We've been wanting to release it for a while. We've had so many other ones in the queue. And so as you listen to this today, here's what I want you to consider. If you've ever felt disqualified to help because you didn't know what to say, or if you've ever been the one hurting and just needed someone to stay, If you've ever wondered whether your church, your small group, or your everyday relationships could actually be a part of God's healing work, this conversation is for you. Again, it's not really about, do I have the answers, but it's about a better question. Am I willing to be present? So I can't wait for you to lean in and listen to this conversation with Shaunti Feldhahn and Dr. Jim Sells. Before we do that, it is a very appropriate time to mention that the Biblical Trauma Care Specialist course that we offer, that more specifically our coaching director, Teresa Glantz, offers to enhance your level of care in or outside of the church for trauma survivors, for people who are going through grief, loss, pain. So this is for coaches, for therapists, for pastors, ministry leaders, lay leaders, for first responders, medical providers. This class is opening up registration. You'll hear more about it as we go. nothingiswasted.com/BTCS to find out more information and to register. This class always fills up, so you're definitely going to want to jump on it early. And so yeah, nothingiswasted.com/BTCS. Also, if you want to get started in your healing journey or find out where you are on the pathway of pain so you can know how to navigate it better, I want to invite you to this free assessment that we have on nothingiswasted.com/start here. And it's 6 questions, very simple, takes 2 to 3 minutes to go through this assessment, and it'll tell you where you are on your pain path. There's 6 stages of trauma, and we want to help you identify that and give you some resources to move forward in your healing journey so you can get back in the game, get on mission. You don't have to feel this way. The enemy does not have to have the last word in your life, so we want to help you with that because we're here to meet you in your pain and provide a pathway through. All right, without further ado, we're going to dive into my conversation with Shaunti Feldhahn and Dr. Jim Sells. Well, Shaunti, Jim, it is so great to have you on the Nothing is Wasted podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Joy to be
so
here.
Delighted.
Yes.
Shaunti, you have been on before, and
Yes.
The Lord just keeps crossing our paths, which I love.
I know.
Wasn't
It was
such a
so great
delight?
to actually see you in person last year.
I know. It was
That was
awesome.
unexpected and awesome.
I don't know if you were planning on going there this year, but I was a little disappointed that we had to get that postponed. But
I was too. Yes, we were planning on it, but maybe
well,
next year.
next trip, whatever that
Next
is.
trip. Yes.
We'll look forward to seeing you guys. And Jim, you have become already a new friend just in a little bit of conversation that we've had. But why don't you guys both just take a turn and just give our audience a little bit of context of who you are, and then let's dive into this really important work that you guys are doing.
Sure. Shaunti, go ahead.
So, hey, everybody. My name is Shaunti Feldhahn, and I am a social researcher and an author and a speaker, and came to this project, which I know we'll introduce here in a minute, because of a passion to see the church step in and perhaps be a solution to the mental health crisis.
Come on. Come
Yeah.
on. Shaunti, this is, I mean, you're speaking our language. This is something we are extremely passionate about.
I know you are, which is
And
why I've been looking forward to this. I was
I'm
telling
so
Jim
looking
all
forward
about
to
you
it.
guys, and he was very excited.
Jim,
Yeah.
one of the leading phrases that keeps me up at night and fuels the crusade that we're on is one of our coaches. I told you about our coaching when we were off air a moment ago. They went through their own crisis, and this is what she told me. She said, Davey, we had to go outside the church to find our healing.
Yeah.
And that just didn't sit right with me. And so that's why I'm so excited about what you guys are doing. Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself. And then
I am coming from the boring academic side. I'm a professor and have been so for 30 years.
No such thing. No such thing. I rebuke that in Jesus' name.
So my job at Regent University is to direct with Jen Ripley the Caris Institute, where we are tasked to build resources for the church, particularly in marriage, in family, and in all things related to emotional, behavioral, cognitive support. Helping individuals thrive through the church is what we do at Caris. Create resources, oversee graduate students who are seeking to pursue the same path, and then partner with churches, and then even write books with Shaunti Feldhahn. So that thing that you said, this whole project was initiated on my side. Shaunti has a different story, but on my side, just by driving by a church in the middle of South Carolina in the country, a little 150 seat brick white steeple church, you've seen hundreds of them. The sign said, family council available. And I thought, in this little country church in Anderson County, the best thing they could put up on their sign was no longer Sunday school at 9:30, worship service at 11, prayer
Yeah.
meeting Wednesdays at 7 o'clock. The
Mm.
most important thing that this church could provide is the message. You got family pain, come here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a bellwether for me to think about how the church can fill in that space.
Mm. Phew. I don't claim to be a prophet by any stretch of the imagination, but I do get the beautiful privilege of going into churches all over the country, different expressions of the kingdom of God from all different spectrums of, high liturgical church, freeform worship, all the different
Yeah.
denominations. So I get to see that God's working and moving in a lot of different spaces. There's not
Yeah.
just one tribe, not just one denomination. He's working in a lot of different spaces. But what I do have this impression of is that the one of the new wineskins, if not the new wineskin of the revival that God
Mhm.
wants to do, the great awakening he wants to do in our country is out of this idea of healing,
Yeah.
Mhm.
especially mental, emotional, spiritual healing. And I'm curious what you guys would think about that. I love talking to folks who are in this space, seeing this a lot, and seeing if you would agree, if you see that being kind of the landscape of what is going on and what our country needs.
Yeah. Shaunti,
I
you want to go ahead? I can jump in, but follow you.
here's the thing, Davey, I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
The issue is whether or not the church can see a path for the church to be a solution in that area.
Mm,
Because basically, here's what we've done. The last 2 years, Jim and I have spent interviewing and surveying more than 2,000 pastors. We did this huge survey of pastors of every conceivable stream of the church, and it was exactly like what you're talking about, all the different churches you go into, and it's the huge ones and the little bitty ones, and black and white and charismatic and very staid, frozen chosen, like everything under the sun, Protestant and Catholic. And and one of the things that we saw very, very clearly is that all these pastors, all these church leaders, and some of the clinicians that we included as well, that everybody wants to help hurting people. Like
mm,
that's one of the reasons most pastors got into this vocation. They
that's
felt
right.
called to care for people in the name of Jesus. The
Yeah.
issue right now is that they're overwhelmed. There's outside of every pastor's office, outside of every clinician's office is a line of people that there's no way that they can
Yeah.
serve in the way they want to with a number of hours in the day. There's just more demand than there is supply. And the premise, the default that most pastors told us, 88% of the pastors on the survey, which is a huge number,
Right.
88% said, I feel like my job, when someone hurting comes to me, yeah, I might see them once or twice, but my job is to refer them out,
Yeah.
refer them to a clinician, because I'm not a specialist. I'm
Which
not,
is true,
which is
right?
true,
I
right?
mean,
Like I'm
I went
not.
to Bible college and we didn't learn
Yeah,
how
you
to
were
do
a
this.
pastor. Like
Yep.
you didn't, yeah, you didn't learn all the trade secrets that Jim has as a
Right.
clinical psychologist. And so there's this feeling of my job is to refer out to those people who have the high level of care and know how to deal with these real specific things. And that's all good. Jim's been training people
Mhm.
for 30 years on how to do that. The
Yep.
problem is because there is so much more need than could ever be seen
Right.
by any, counselors, pastors, whatever. What we're suggesting is that not everything needs to go to the clinician. There are so many
Yes.
things that someone just needs someone to walk alongside.
Yeah.
And yet we don't have a system for that in most churches. And so referring out is the only thing that can do, and people feel helpless and not helped. And so what we're proposing is we have a vision and a process gleaned from all these churches because there are thousands of churches that are doing this well.
Mm,
So let us show you what all these different churches are doing. You, with your DNA, see if you can raise up a level of lay care
come on.
of people to walk alongside one another.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
What are you guys tell me a little bit about it, this massive work of research that you guys have done over the past couple of years. The book that you're releasing in this is called When Hurting People Come to Church: How People of Faith can help solve the mental health crisis.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right. There's this dilemma where everybody's going, I want to help. In our organization, we have an avatar. We call her Empathetic Emily. She says,
Uh,
I want to help. I just don't know how. I don't know if I'm trained or equipped. We also have Tired Tom, who's the pastor, who's
yeah.
going, I have a heart for shepherding. I want to help, but I don't know how. But you guys are saying that you're seeing some churches, many of them, that are doing a great job, and you've collected this wide array of
Mhm.
research on that. What have you
Yeah.
seen in terms
Yeah.
of the churches that are really doing a great job of this? What does that look like?
It is so diverse with big churches are doing great things. Small churches are doing great things. Uh, uh, in collecting the research, we did two phases. Well, first was a survey, 1,952 participants. 37 of those 1,900 were mega churches of 10,000 or more. 650 were small churches of 100 or less. So we've really covered everything, interviewed people from the diverse Christendom. Then we interviewed 100 pastors and church leaders who are creating interventions and in this care space. What are you doing? And show us, teach us, uh, and there are so many that emerge as powerful stories. We write of 5 exemplar churches from a variety of spaces. Like the one church is relatively small, like 150-ish people. Shaunti, help me with the exact numbers, but they have an addictions ministry and a mealtime and addictions ministry on Friday nights that serve 500.
Wow.
So they've tripled the size of their church meets on Friday,
Yeah.
in essence.
Yeah.
And the Sunday worship service, that's kind of like an afterthought. But the
Mm,
real church is going on Friday,
mm,
uh, and it's just a head scratcher. With wow, and there's a host of developed ministries, churches that have taken on this as we want to make a difference in our community.
yeah.
And probably where we are trying to target then is, can we teach people uh, how to listen well as the
Mm,
fundamental basic skill that every person in
Yeah.
Christendom needs to be able to possess before they can address someone's pain, before they can even consolidate a ministry? Are you able just to sit with somebody in pain and not have it get underneath your skin, or not turn into a panic in which you have to just say, well, I can't do this. You should talk to the pastor.
wow.
So we want every
Wow.
person in Christendom to be able to do three things: one, to listen; two, to pray with instead of praying for; uh, and three, to have a very simple strategy of problem solving.
Wow.
Uh, and if you've got those three skills, you can do an awful lot.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm reading M. Scott Peck's The Road Less Traveled right now.
yes.
Mm,
And it is remarkable to me how much he just brings out this one skill
Yeah.
of just listening. Others would call it, I think Dan Allender calls it, being an empathetic witness.
Yeah.
Just being able to hold space and hear somebody without trying to solve or resolve their pain,
Yeah.
without trying to put some kind of a spiritual, theological platitude across the top of it and go, or just,
Yeah.
oh, pray more, or just kind of like, oh, I feel uncomfortable about this. And so I need to. Can you talk a little bit more about why this skill is so important, even psychologically? Dan Siegel talks about a lot of the idea of
mm,
attunement, and really what that does when you're able to reflect with people. But can you, Jim, maybe help us understand, like, why is this so pivotal for someone
Yeah.
to feel heard and understood in the middle
Yeah.
of these times?
Um, God created us as relational beings. In fact, it's an odd thing. My first lecture on this to my graduate students is let's look at Trinitarian God as relational.
Mm.
God loves God, and that's what God has done for eternity. Literally, love God, and then God creates humanity in that same image of a relational structure. We are designed to be connected, and if we're disconnected, we die. That's the Chris McCandless's Into the Wild story from a couple of decades ago, and then the movies that have followed. Like, I'm going to go live on my own. He died, uh, and
Wow.
we are incapable of self survival. Autonomy is a myth. There is no such thing as an autonomous human being that is able to thrive. We
Mm.
we live in community, and we're dependent upon that that relational structure as hardwired into our brains. Now, when we have pain, that activates a portion of our brain it's called the limbic system. It's where your ears and nose intersect, and in pain, that thing takes over.
Mm.
And it's our self-protective brain structure, and it's not our creative part, it's not our problem solving part, it's not even our relational part, it's our self-centered, I can't trust, I've got to survive part. And when that thing is running the show, uh, then all the other things get hindered, and we are less capable of solving problems, of engaging in relationship when that thing is triggered, when that thing has been provoked into function. So really much of church care is is helping someone move to the front part of their brain. And
Mm.
that's where our relational competences are, that's where our creativity is, that's where peace lies. Problem solving is there. Like the three of us right now in this conversation, because we're not there's no fire in the buildings that we're in, we're functioning right there in the forehead of our brain.
Yeah.
And that's where growth occurs. Everything good comes out of that part of the brain, and helping people stay there is really the task of ministry.
And if I could just jump in, I
Oh,
mean,
please do.
one
Yeah.
of the things that I've been looking at a lot of different neuroscience studies recently about some of this, and okay, I'm going to oversimplify. Jim is probably going to have to correct me because these studies,
Put the tough
like they
cookies on the
make my
bottom shelf
brain
for us,
hurt
Yeah.
Shaunti.
sometimes. Yeah. But one of several of the ones that I was looking at was we're talking about how being listened to and having someone who's calm and present
Mm.
to be able to just you for you to be able to share the whatever the tension, whatever the concern, whatever the trauma, whatever the grief, whatever the depression, that that having someone just sit with you like that, it actually helps the brain
Yeah.
move from that survival brain into a place where we can be much more productive and much more ourselves.
Mm.
And that one thing, it just shows me that's a perfect example of what Jim is talking about, of how God has wired us. And the issue in the church right now is it is filled with caring people. And there's tons of church hurt, sure. But the church, I can tell you, you can say, I mean, I'm sure Jim has seen this. Every church that we go to speak, every church in our research, it's filled with people who love one another, who
Yeah.
care for one another, who want to be present with people. It's just also filled with people who don't know exactly what that looks like and
Yeah.
how. And so we've gotten this idea over the last 30 or 40 years that the way you help somebody is refer them to a specialist.
Yeah.
And that may be needed. But what we're trying to recapture is, can we build a vision for the church that is, yeah, you maybe do need to refer somebody to a specialist, but I guarantee you that specialist, if they are doing their job, Jim told me this months ago. He's like, if I'm doing my job as a psychologist and let's just say somebody in a really difficult marriage season comes to me, I am not doing my job if I don't tell them, you really need to get together with like a healthy marriage, as a mentor for dinner on Thursday nights. Like, the
Yeah.
whole point is to find somebody to walk alongside. We need
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to equip the church, not just with the vision, but the how to. That's the whole point behind the book. And it's the whole point behind this big ministry called the Church Cares that's
Wow.
been raised up over the last couple of years to help the church actually do this practically.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
So, Jim, you referred to three things, and either one of you guys kind of fill this in. You said listening is the first thing you're trying to help people really grab hold of, the church, especially lay leaders, leaders. What were the other two? Can you remind me of the other two things?
Yeah. Prayer and problem solving.
Prayer and problem solving.
And prayer, uh, our colleague Jen Ripley created just a lovely, elegant video lesson on um, praying for one another,
Mm,
and uh, distinct from, or rather, praying with one another, distinct from praying for. Like, oftentimes, prayer is the benediction to the conversation. We talk, and then we say, "Can I pray for you?" And it's time for me to go. Uh, and versus to think of prayer as as um, me and you um, entering the presence of God together around this thing that is so confusing. We don't
mm,
have answers. We are powerless to it. And it's not going to be taken away as a result of this conversation. It's going to stay.
mm.
And we want to bring our utter helplessness around this thing to God.
Wow.
And and I'm doing it with you. It's your pain, and I can't take it away. I can walk with you in it. And then tomorrow it's my pain. So it's not a one-sided, unidirectional process. This is
Right.
everybody attending to everybody.
Right.
Uh, that we stand with one another in intercessory prayer,
Mm,
which is a beautiful word of just like, I am with you right here. I am with you um, as we go to God, because we are powerless to address some of these tragic things, big or small. And it's not
wow.
just the the story of human disaster. It's the I'm feeling stressed around a difficult relationship at work, and I don't know what to do. And
Wow.
it's taking up my attention. I can't think about other things because I'm thinking about this thing. Uh, so that's everybody's story.
Yeah.
Everybody is right there.
Yeah. Phew. It's amazing because uh we, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's Western American culture and how that's kind of crept into the church, but we think that we have to solve or resolve people's pain. Like in those moments, in order for
Mhm.
them to get a touch from God, they have to get a word of wisdom from us, or like
Mhm.
a scripture verse or something where, and here you're saying, actually, some of the best ministry is a mutual acknowledgement that we don't have the answer, but we
Yeah,
do have a connection to the one who does have the answer.
yeah,
I spoke at a pastor's gathering this past week, and I spoke on 1 Samuel chapter 30, where David and his men come back to Ziklag, and their their camp is destroyed, and their
yeah,
wives and their kids are stolen by the Amalekites. And before they even go into like, okay, we got to get, let's ready our horses, let's go and take, get revenge or whatever, right before they go find their, it says that the men were bitter at David and they wanted to stone him. So they didn't know what to do with their pain. People are going to put
yeah,
their pain somewhere.
yeah,
But David, he ends up acknowledging that he doesn't know what to do. As the
yeah,
leader, he goes,
Yeah.
and it says that he wept until he had no more strength. And then he strengthened himself in the Lord his God. And then he asked, he first, and he said, bring me the linen ephod. So the garment of praise. And so he worships in that moment, like basically acts as the priest on behalf of the people right there, leads them to the throne room of God and goes, what should we do? That's exactly what
Yeah.
you're saying right there.
yeah, yeah,
There is an immense amount of power, and many of us have been in these seasons where we've felt it. Not all of us have the same kind of tragic backstory that you do, Davy, and have many of us haven't had to walk through something quite like that. But all of us have walked through pain, and all of us know the feeling of a, a parent dies unexpectedly, or you lose a job that you thought was going to be your career. That's happened to me.
Mm.
I had a job after I left New York for a very short period of time that I thought would be my career, and it was an international ministry, and 6 months later I was called out to a board meeting and fired. And it was
Wow.
just devastating to me. I didn't realize it was devastating because I had way too much pride.
Mm.
But it was devastating, and
Yeah.
in that moment, the thing that made the most difference for me, as I'm sure with many of us, is that there were friends who just came over for dinner,
Yeah.
and there were
Mm.
people who said, "Hey, can we just have a game night? And can we just be together without having to have the answers?"
Wow.
Because
Mhm.
sometimes there aren't any answers. Today, I look back, I love the name Nothing is Wasted, because I look back and I
Yeah.
go, I would not be an author and a social researcher today if I
Wow.
hadn't gotten fired from that job. Now
Yeah.
I know that. At the time, I did not. And
Wow.
so for someone to say to me, um, you know, this is so hard, but God is here, and I don't know how He's going to use this, but we can trust Him. That's
Mm.
about as far as I was able to see.
Mm.
And I'm sure all of us have stories like that. And that is something that every person who follows Jesus can do.
Wow.
Yeah. I love James 3:2. Each of us struggle in many different ways. That covers a lot of people
Yeah.
and a lot of
Yeah.
problems. We all, it literally is, we all struggle in many different ways. And then the next question, if that's true, we all struggle in many different ways. It's like, so what do we do about the fact that we all are struggling? Uh,
Mm.
and and if indeed everybody hurts, then everybody has to be in the care ministry. Like whether it's a literal active thing or it's just what I do. And like I serve coffee as my ministry before in between services at church. No, you are involved in caring for people, and you have opportunity to use both your words and your behavior to love one another as they're in pain.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow. You know, you guys have you struck a chord on a lot of things, but one of these things is kind of the tension between when professional help is needed
yeah,
and to what level, a lay person in the church, every saint, right? The
yeah,
priesthood of all believers is able to serve and minister to people in this. And I think that we underestimate how much we're able to do. I think that's kind of what you guys are saying, is that we underestimate how much every believer is able to care.
yeah,
And so that moves the line of demarcation for us often, where we go, oh, okay, I hit the threshold now, just gotta point and refer out to. Where is the line of demarcation? Where would you guys say
um,
in your experience is like, okay, this is the point where maybe there's some additional professional
yeah,
level,
yeah. I think it's actually clearly defined. We
okay.
have in in the mental health world, we have the the diagnostic and statistical manual that defines what mental illness is. It defines major depression with a set of behavioral criteria, and that's different from being sad or discouraged. Uh, Sadness is not a mental illness. It's a human emotion that prompts us to to feel deeply wounded. Uh, but it's clearly distinct from someone who their sadness is so overwhelming that they have lost the capacity to get out of bed and go to work.
Yeah.
Like so, so our we have a real set of specific guidelines for me as a psychologist. And these are the people that I am to treat in an allied mental health medical way. These are the people who might be needing medication to address some of their brain reactivity. But
Right.
this is not the same as someone who is grieving. Uh,
Mm,
and this is not the same that as someone who is addressing habits that continue to control their lives in ways that create relational destruction. Uh,
mm,
so so we have um, my job and my work is clearly defined, but a lot of people who don't meet the threshold come to see me, and I'm really glad to see them as a professional psychologist because I feel good every time someone who just has a modest level of anxiety or depression comes to me. They're sad or they're discouraged or they're fearful, they're stressed because they get better so fast and they usually pay cash.
your job's easy.
Yeah, it's like, wow, I feel great. But
Wow.
those are not the people that I'm really trained to work with. The
Mm,
church is trained to work with them or should be trained to work with them and send me those folks whose severity in life uh, has interfered with their ability even to function, even to go to work, even to have ongoing relationship. It's their obsession and they can't get out of it. Those are the ones that the licensed professional ought to be spending their time with.
mm, wow. So when you guys are doing this research, I'm assuming that on some level, whether they want to call it communities, support groups, small groups, whatever, but the idea of peer to peer is crucial in this,
Yes.
on the ones that you're seeing that are doing it well.
Yeah.
Can you guys expound on that a little
Go,
bit?
Shanti.
Yeah. Let me explain that when we're talking about the people that are doing this well, it looks different in every single church. Like
Right.
every church has its own DNA. But there are a few common denominators. There are some things that tended to be a key piece of actually operationalizing this at a lot of
Mm,
churches. So that idea of like peer groups, for example, like lots of churches never really have thought about, maybe the Celebrate Recovery is like an official part of our response to mental and emotional health issues. Okay, that's like, let's think of it that way, like
right.
actively referring people to that as a mechanism for care and ongoing fellowship and peer support. But there's another mechanism that is often there with churches that are doing this, which is that they have had and I'm going to make sort of an overgeneralization, but they've had some sort of a process whereby there is a person who has come to the pastor. It can't be the pastor because every
Mm.
pastor is the busiest person that I know, right? But there is a person with a passion for this
Yeah.
who has come to the pastor and has said, I really feel like we can be serving our community, we can be serving our church around mental and emotional health, around marriage issues, around pain. I want to help us do this more in the church rather than just referring it out. Pastor, do I have your permission to start some form of a working group,
Wow.
like get a group of people that we can sit down and figure out what this might look like, overseen perhaps by the pastor for
Right.
sure. But do I have your permission to do this?
That's so good.
And
Shanti,
and
that's key, by the way. I just want
it
to double
is.
click on that because
Oh,
as a
go,
pastor,
yes.
the first thing that you are always reticent toward is someone coming and suggesting this is the ministry that we should do and putting that monkey on your back.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's the fastest way to get a pastor to like shut down, no matter how good that ministry is, because they're
Exactly.
so busy. They're so busy. But if you have a champion that says, I'm willing to step up and take
Yes,
the helm, if you'll just co-sign this, if you'll just say, hey, give me the lane to run in, I'll do
I'll
this.
do it. Exactly. And so what we call that person a coordinator.
Mm,
And it could be multiple people, it could be one person. But that person, first of all, they become the person who helps figure out how to get this going and kind of owns it. Because if you don't have somebody who owns it, who's got the responsibility to move it forward, it's just not going to happen. And
Mm,
like you said, if it's on the pastor, there's just no way, as much as a pastor might want that.
Yeah.
right.
And so what we found was pretty common, was a pastor who says, okay, yeah, let's try this. Thank you, Susie, for
Yeah.
being willing to take this on.
Right.
Um, that pastor, often another piece of the puzzle that was very common, is that they, at some point when they were ready, they would stand up on stage on Sunday morning and say, okay, church, we really want to step into this space, but I can't do this alone. Susie can't do this alone. If you are interested in being a part of this ministry, or if you are interested in helping us think it through, we need people who are good strategists, right?
Wow.
If you're interested, we're going to form a working group. The meeting's going to be in 2 Thursdays at 7 o'clock and come join us, and just let's see if we can form a group of people to try to move this forward. And people come out of the woodwork. I had so many pastors that I was talking to say, I was thinking there's no way we were going to get more volunteers. Like,
Wow.
already, like, the same volunteers are doing everything. Like, you can't put more on them. And yet there were people who came out of the woodwork because, like, this one pastor told me that one woman came up to him in tears. She was like, my best friend's son committed suicide. That is never happening again.
Yes.
Like,
Wow.
this passion,
Wow.
I'm going to help with this. And then once that group has been formed, once the church, they figure out what would work with the DNA of their church, they make a recommendation. How do we start this? And
Yeah.
one of the most common starting points is, you know what? Let's offer a simple training
Yep.
in how you listen. And we've got one at thechurchcares.com. There's multiple ministries that have
Yeah.
different kinds of listening training, but ours is set up so it's just a few hours, and it's set up honestly to make it easy, as like a 6-week Bible study kind of thing. Like,
Wow.
we have the spring Beth Moore study, and we've got the men's group, and oh, we have this listening training.
Yeah.
And we had one church that we were talking to in Phoenix where they offered this regularly, every semester, as a way to, like, help train everybody in the church, and oh, by the way, to see who might be good listeners.
Mm.
And
Okay.
one guy told us that he signed up for this because his girlfriend had just broken up with him because she said, you never listen. So
Yeah.
that
Wow.
that guy started, and he ended up becoming one of their key, like, lay counselors.
Hey, that's a pain point right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But
Driving
that's
him
an
to
example.
wow.
That
Yeah.
process that I just outlined is
Wow.
pretty basic, and
Yeah.
yet it delivers for many churches something that will make a huge difference in the culture of the church
Mm.
and the ability to help people in pain.
Yeah.
Mm.
I got a note yesterday from a pastor of a church in Colorado that has 80 members, and they started the listening class last night, and there were 20 people. So 1/4 of the
1/4.
church is like, like so not just two, but like 1/4 of the church is saying this is what we're going to be about in our small community. Like,
Wow.
and so that to me is more impressive than a church of 2,000 started this thing,
Right.
and we had 40 people. Like, no, you like the widow's mite there,
That's right.
of that was her one coin. What
Wow.
Shaunti was saying is so crucial, and uh, the a coordinator saying let's start, and then what we've tried to do with the church cares is gather best practices and create our own about how you start, what do you do. So
Mm.
a number of the team and Shaunti and Jen Ripley and many others have put together the kit. Uh, and the kit is free. All of our resources, you just come onto our website, you give us your email address so we can communicate with you, and you have access to all the resources. And
Wow.
there's hundreds of documents. There's how to do everything from how to make sure that legally the church is protected. We had a lawyer professor write out that instruction and what to do with and
Wow.
every conceivable problem we've tried to address to make it a buffet style. We'll take this, we'll take that, we'll take the other. Oh, look, from this other ministry, we're going to borrow that because it's on their website and that we've got permission from that person to put it up there to distribute out. So our task is, if you want to do it, we'll give you the tools to do it, and to connect with other ministries and even with us. You want to have a consultant, have someone have collaboration with other churches who are in the same spot. Yep, we'll help connect you. Uh,
Wow.
so our task is to just empower you and 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 empower you in terms of, Davey, your ministry. How can we make it happen? How
Yeah.
can we
Yeah.
how can we attend to the things that just haven't worked for you yet in terms of
Yeah.
how you're trying to train this and or train others, and we want to be the wind behind that fills other people's sails, uh,
Wow.
and just like, okay, uh, can you've identified that problem, let's put our heads together about how it can be addressed.
Yeah. Phew. Well, Shaunti, even the framework that you just laid out in terms of, having somebody step up and go, hey, I'll be a champion, I'll be a coordinator for this.
Yeah.
And then the next step, at some point, the pastor coming up and saying, hey, if you're also interested in this, we're going to have this meeting over here, and then having some training involved. That
Yeah.
simple process right there is revolutionary.
It is.
And we, for our organization, when it comes to Pain to Purpose, I was talking to Jim about this. I don't know if Shaunti, if you know this, but we launch a course called Pain to Purpose across the country at churches all over.
Yeah.
It is we like to call it the Financial Peace University of Pain and Trauma. It functions very similarly, right?
I've never heard you say that, but
It's a
okay, that makes sense.
video
Okay.
course curriculum. It's about a year's worth of counseling from a content standpoint, but it's all peer to peer, right? And we train
So
facilitators to
good.
really lead those groups and I cannot wait to jump onto the resources you guys have as far as like teaching them how to listen well. But it is so critical, and we have guys, those of you guys who are listening to this, Shaunti and I connected in person at a pastor's retreat. So we have constantly been trying to help pastors get around
Yeah.
this and champion this. But
Yeah.
we've seen so much, I guess, quote unquote, success when somebody, a layperson who's been listening to the podcast, goes, you know what? I'd like to pilot that in my church. I'll just do it,
Yeah.
grassroots style. Here we go. And the
Yeah.
ones who have done a great job with it have followed that exact same framework that you just laid out
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
We have heard that framework so many times, and it's fascinating to see how, like I said, this was almost 2000, well, this was more than 2000 pastors in terms of the interviews and surveys. And I feel like they ended up with 2000 different models. Like, in the end, like it looked different in every
Yep.
church because God works in
Because
all
he's
these different
working
ways
differently.
and
That's right.
leads the pastor in different directions. I can picture people listening to this right now who are like, you know what? The pain to purpose thing, I could go to my church and I could say, I want to start this, but I have a bigger vision now.
Yeah,
Not just to start a pain to purpose group, but how can I use that as a way to raise up lay listeners
that's right.
who go through that process and are not just, hey, I'll go be a pain to purpose facilitator next
Right.
year, but also, wow, maybe we can raise up, 10, 20, 30 lay listeners so that when someone in pain calls the church and says, my husband just lost his job, my daughter is pregnant, I don't know what to
Mm,
do, help me, pastor, that the pastor can say something a little bit different than what has been said before, instead of, sure, let me get you into my assistant, and the pastor privately is thinking, I'm probably just going to end up referring them after a session or two to a
right.
counselor. The pastor can say, or the receptionist of the church can say, absolutely, we'll get you to the pastor, but you know what, in the meantime, I'm going to have Susie call you,
Yeah.
and Susie's our coordinator, and she's going to listen and hear what you have to say, and maybe we will refer you to a counselor, but you know what, in the meantime, we have some people who love walking alongside one another, and I happen to know that for your husband, there's a guy named Brad who went through that exact same thing with losing his job and all these things in his life a couple years ago, I bet he'd be willing to talk to your husband and just get coffee.
Wow.
Like, how powerful would it be
Wow.
to have all of that? And it actually doesn't take a ton of effort to set it up.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And to think there's that level of explicit deep hurt. And then there's a whole nother level underneath that of how the church can be prepared. For example, we use the illustration of, imagine a toddler, a nursery toddler ministry, the Sunday school hour where parents drop their kids off as they go to the worship service, and uh, Megan works there. She bounces 2-year-olds on her knee and gets on the carpet and plays with them for that hour and a half. And as she hands Tyler back to Tyler's mom, Maria, she just says, Tyler didn't want to play with other kids today. In fact, he just wanted to sit in my lap and be held.
Mm.
And Maria just starts to weep. Uh, now, this is not big, deep trauma. This is a mom feeling stressed over, I've got 4 kids, 3 of them are in diapers, and I am tapped out, and my husband is deployed, and it's just me right now, and I'm so concerned and so powerless.
Yeah.
And all Megan has to do is
Mm.
say, the nursing room's empty right now. Let's you and I go talk.
Wow. Wow. The thing that you're touching on right here is that historically in churches we've compartmentalized ministries,
Mhm.
and this idea right here of um, helping hurting people is actually pervasive in all departments of ministry.
Exactly.
This is
Yes.
not,
100%.
Yeah.
we have youth pastors going, I don't know how to, we have kids ministry leaders who are going, I don't know what to do about, I don't know what, we have small group leaders who think that they're leading a small group on, I don't know, some kind of
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
book of James.
theological, right?
Yeah.
What
We
it
think it's
seems totally separate then, but it bleeds into conversation because that's the prevalent thing that's going on in society today,
yeah.
which means this is the, like, for a time such as this, guys,
Yeah,
right? Like
this is
this is
it.
the most missional thing that we can do as a church.
Oh, let me just tell you, there were on the survey, because remember, we surveyed everybody, all different opinions on this. What do you think about mental health? What are your perspectives? What are you doing or not doing? What help do you need? Like, all over the map. And there were tons of pastors on the survey who said, look, I am not a psychologist. My job is not, the church's job is not to help in that area. Our job is discipleship and evangelism. Let's not
Mm.
get distracted.
Mm.
And I was like, because then there were other pastors who wrote in things like, people think our job is to do the spiritual side and somebody else does the psychological side, but there is no such distinction. It's
Oh,
all of the above. And this is a moment in which you have so many hurting people coming for help. What better opportunity for discipleship and evangelism? I mean, one of the things that
wow.
my husband Jeff said a couple weeks ago, we were talking about this, is he's like, look, this is him saying this. He said, I got saved at the age of 18, back in the day when it was like the late great planet Earth, like Jesus is about to come back, and like evangelism, because
Yep.
the time is short.
Yep.
And he said, my church was the type that would want people to stand on street corners with tracts and
Right.
giving out tracts. He's like, that's so not me. Like, he's like, I don't know how to do evangelism that way. He said, but if you're telling me today that there are hurting people who are coming to the church and saying, help, I don't know what to do, I have no hope, and we can share the hope of Jesus with these people, and they're asking for that help. What an incredible way of being authentic and organic about this is the hope that we have to share with you. We don't have any answers, but we do have Jesus, and he does have the answers, and he does have healing for you. And what an incredible opportunity for evangelism and discipleship today.
Wow.
Hmm.
Mm. Man, I'm going to be up at night now because of what you just said, Shaunti, that that
Yeah.
pastors, ministers of the gospel, and I know this to be true. I was just hoping that it wasn't the case, but like explicitly are saying,
Yeah.
hey, our job is this, we're going to leave it to that.
Yeah,
Because
it wasn't the majority. Let me just be
right.
very
Yeah,
clear.
for
That
sure.
was definitely a minority.
Yeah.
About, I think it was 81% of the pastors said they know that mental health issues are
Yeah.
prevalent in the church.
Yeah.
It was only something like 19% that said they didn't think so. And that's still too high, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I think it's probably even less than that, 19% that would say, and that's just not my job.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't, you guys may have some more updated statistics. I think I read in, what's the organization? Pew something, whatever it's the major
Mhm. Yeah.
statistic organization,
Yeah.
Pew study, something like that, that only 26% of churches have some kind of groups oriented ministry
Right.
surrounding, pain, mental illness,
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Our That's probably realistic. Our numbers from our survey were a little bit higher than that. We asked the
Good.
question, "Are you doing a good job?" And I think about a third said, "Yes, we are." But that was good job was undefined.
Yeah. Right.
So
Well,
Right.
it probably that one fourth probably is more realistic, and we found really a very similar response.
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. Mm,
What we found is that about 75% of churches have pastoral counseling. So
right.
it's on the pastor. And may not be all on the pastor, but they have pastoral counseling. I was actually surprised it wasn't 100%, but it was 75%
Mm,
had pastoral counseling, and about 70%, I think it was like upper 60s around there, had some form of help for people that was a little bit more specialized, like lay people, but
mm,
like a Celebrate Recovery group, or some sort of
right.
a group with for men who are having an issue with pornography,
Right.
or maybe even something like a lay counseling group.
Mm,
But only about a third actually had anything like what we're talking about, of a level below that, which is just walking alongside people in pain.
right. Right.
There are great ministries out there that, like Stephen Ministry, right?
Hmm. Yep.
But that's 50 hours of training. I put that in that higher, more specialized
Mm,
bucket, right?
okay.
Like, because most people just aren't going to be able to do that amount of training. Now, your group, Pain to Purpose, you're doing more of the high level. Those people who, when they walk out of there, they actually have probably an opportunity to be a bit more specialized,
Yeah.
around trauma, for
Right.
example.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
b- but we need both, right? We need the
Exactly.
person who's gone through that year and has come out the other side and wants to start a mental health ministry in the church.
Right.
And we need somebody who says, look, I'm just a mom with 4 kids and I don't even know which way my head is on, but I can meet somebody for coffee,
Yeah.
a few times.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
I liken it to there are there's a need in the church for various levels of degrees.
Yeah. That's
And you
good.
can mention that as some, but everybody needs to read.
Mm, that's good. Yep.
Yeah.
That's really good. Phew. So when we get this book, which everybody needs to pick up, not just pastors and ministry leaders, although pastors, ministry leaders, you definitely should pick this up because this is speaking directly to your
Yeah.
mission field where you're at right now,
Yeah.
but also everybody, because that's what this is all about. It's all of us have we have all been equipped with what we need for life and godliness, is what scripture tells us, which
Yeah.
means being able to comfort others with the same comfort that we've received, which is also what scripture tells us. When we pick up hurting people come to church, when hurting people come to church, what are we to expect with this? what are you guys hoping that by the end of it, the reader goes,
That's it.
this is where I'm at. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we want every reader to understand the problem and and see potential solutions from where they sit in their
Mm,
community, in their church, and and to see this as uh, human care exists beyond uh, the the professional degree. Human care exists, and even beyond my church, human care exists for me to attend to any person in my community.
mm,
And I want to change even how professionals think. Instead of average clinician will see 200 people a year, different bodies in a given year. If you have 50 million people standing in line for care and you're seeing 200 million a year, you have to have a different strategy.
yeah.
So I tell clinicians, what would your life look like if you were responsible for 10,000 people? Uh, so, so you provide supervision, oversight, care for really the serious, but you're overseeing this care of everyone, and that's in essence what we want people to take. Uh, the we list one of the appendices is active ministries that we think are doing terrific work.
Mm.
Actually, it's not printed in the book because then it would be dead. But
Yeah.
it's the link to where that list is on our website,
Mm.
so you can go. We can update it every week uh, with examples of new things, and so that's our task.
And I can tell you right now, I wanna update it this week with your purpose to paint your pain to purpose.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
definitely
You
get you
know,
the
like,
information when we
that's
get off this. Yes,
exactly
for
why
sure.
we have
Right.
it online. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because there's a lot of great resources out there. There's
yeah,
so
Yeah.
many great resources, but sometimes people just aren't connected to it. They don't know what's out there.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
So this is activating. That's what I'm hearing. I mean, people are going to read this and they're going to be like, wow, not only am I charged up to say, hey, we can do something about this, but here's some handholds. Here are some practical next
Yes.
steps on how we can fit this into the construct of what our church is already doing right now.
If
yeah,
we don't make this practical
Yeah.
for the busy church and the busy pastor and the champion that's trying to come alongside and help, it's just not likely to happen.
Yeah.
And that was one of our main purposes these last 2 years. We should explain that the reason this is happening at all is that there was a major donor who stepped
Wow.
forward, wants to remain anonymous, and said, we think the church has the
yeah,
opportunity here to be the hero in an incredibly important moment and
Wow.
to share
yeah,
Jesus with people. So, can we do this? Can we help the church be equipped? And so it's all free. And so
Praise
that's the
God.
reason
Wow.
all these resources are free is because it's actually been paid for by
Mm.
this donor. But when we talk about the Church Cares kit, that would be one of our main recommendations for everybody is get the book. I hate to say that because I sound like a commercial, but it's really truly filled with like all this stuff, like these
For sure.
examples of churches that are doing this really well. But also the churchcares.com, the kit. If you look through this, you will see that however you want to do this, there are some common denominators.
Mm.
So, for example, that we put in the church. Excuse me, that we put in the kit. So, for example, one of the things that we heard over and over is that the coordinators, as people started to come to them and say, I'd love to talk to someone, they needed some sort of an intake form. Like, how do you know what questions to ask the person in pain?
Mhm.
Well, okay, Scottsdale Bible Church has a great lay counseling program. They were one of the people we interviewed. Hey, Scottsdale Bible, can we borrow
Wow.
intake form and adapt it for other churches? Yes,
Wow.
sure. So that's in the kit. Like there's all
That's
these
awesome.
assessments and these other things, and not everybody's going to need all of it, but it's all there for people who want to just look through it and get started.
Wow. That's so great. Phew. Man, guys, this has been amazing. This has been so encouraging. on one hand, to feel like, hey, there are others that are out there on this crusade and going, hey, the church can step up in this timely moment of history. And not just that, not just voices, but you guys have put pen to paper, you've put
Yeah.
resources in place. You're actually equipping the church to be that, to
Yeah.
really be that safe space for people who are experiencing pain, trauma, grief, loss, mental illness, and to equip them to lead them to the other side. We're going to put a link in the show notes if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, under the YouTube video if you're watching it on YouTube. When hurting people come to church, how people of faith can help solve the mental health crisis. And then we'll also put a link for the churchcares.com where you can connect with all of those resources. Guys, any final thoughts before we?
Yeah. Make sure if anybody's looking for the website, include the Church Cares. Church Cares takes you to someplace else,
Yeah.
and you get confused if like, what, this doesn't look like
Doesn't
it.
line
But
up. Yeah.
the Church Cares is the name of our website. We also invite churches who are contemplating this. On the website, there is a link that says schedule a session with Jim. So my calendar is on there. I blocked off times, multiple times in the week, where I'm meeting with pastors or meeting with coordinators and potential imaginers around this, and
Wow.
like, yep, let's talk. And then there is just a set of other steps, like, do you want someone to consult with you? Do you like there's a group of doctoral students that are serving as consultants to churches. So we're trying to
That's
create
cool.
as
Wow.
many ways to make it work.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, you guys better go fast because I'm going to fill up Jim's calendar on that scheduler
Absolutely.
right
Go and
now.
do.
Guys, this is, oh my goodness, I'm so stirred up by this. Thank you so much. Shaunti, it's so great to have you back on. It's so great to reconnect with you. And Jim, great to connect with you for the first
Likewise,
time. This is
Davey,
awesome.
good to meet you.
Wow. Thank you. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Nothing is Wasted podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and found it as encouraging and insightful as we did. Now, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen, and leave us a rating and review. Your feedback helps us to connect to those who need these stories of hope and healing most, and to reach more listeners just like you. Also, subscribe to our Nothing is Wasted Ministries YouTube channel. Now, be sure to stay connected with us on social media. You can follow us at Nothing is Wasted Ministries. Follow me at Davey Blackburn. We'd love to interact with you, so be sure to stop by and let us know how these conversations are impacting you and your story. And if you want to learn more about all the incredible resources we have available to help you navigate whatever valley you're walking through, visit our website at nothingiswasted.com. If you're ready to get started in your journey towards healing and finding purpose in your pain, we'd love to help. Simply go to nothingiswasted.com/start here for your next step. We want to thank our guests, and we want to thank you, our Nothing is Wasted community, for tuning in regularly. Remember, no matter what challenges you face, whatever pain you are walking through, nothing is wasted. We'll see you next time for another incredible conversation here on the Nothing is Wasted podcast. But before you go, check out this short clip from our next episode. Thanks for joining us, friends.
When we are going through situations, we're wanting a miracle. We're wanting a snap my finger, you get me out of it. It's microwave. I don't have to endure it. And he's like, nah, babe, I'm going to give you a healing. Because healing is a process. Healing takes time. And healing actually leaves a scar. And when that scar is revealed, it becomes a trophy of grace. And we can look back and go, oh, you know what? I remember. I have to call this one to remembrance. And I can slap it and it doesn't hurt like it used to. Like back in the day when I would touch it, it would gush all over the place. But now I can talk about it and I can tell you what God did in my life. I can tell you how he strengthened me through it. I can tell you how, and it might be a little bit still sore, but I can use this arm now because God is working a healing in it. And so I believe that's what he wants to do in us and through us. But we've got to be honest. We have to say, this is the crud that has happened to me. Wow. This is the anger that I feel. This is the injustice that I've endured, or these are the things that I've actually done. This is the repentance that I need to have, and the forgiveness that I'm praying that he would grant me. I think when we're real about it, then we can receive real healing and we can experience real redemption.